If I were to tell you in the middle of the Matt Patricia era a few years ago that the Detroit Lions would be likely projected to win their division going into next year, and they would have finished 8-2 and had players openly saying they would take hometown discounts to stay in Detroit, I would think you're insane. Obviously, with the regime change, Brad Holmes coming in and Dan Campbell coming in, a lot of people would be like, oh, Dan Campbell, funny gimmick coach, great team to watch on Hard Knocks. Oh, but it's the little Lions. They rub their belly. They're fun. And starting 1-6 will do that, right? Granted, they played a lot of good teams. Eagles playoff team beat the Commanders. Minnesota playoff team, Seattle playoff team, New England almost playoff team, Dallas playoff team, Miami playoff team, right? So they went 1-6 there, losing to 5 playoff teams. After that, you start. That was that was the end of October, and then through November to January, 2 months there, 2 months and 2 days. You went 8-2, right? Granted, there weren't a lot of good teams there. You almost beat the Bills, right? You lost to Carolina by a billion, but things happen. You beat the Packers twice. That's huge. You beat the Giants, playoff team. Beat the Jags, playoff team. Beat the Vikings, playoff team. Beat the Jets, young and upcoming team. Probably got to contend with going forward. Sweeping everyone in the division, going 5-1 in the division. That's pretty good. You should have probably beat Minnesota in the first game, but what happens? Now they finished the year 8-2, like I said, 9-8. Beating the hell out of Green Bay on national TV. Everyone texting you, "Good job, man." It was your Super Bowl. Granted, that did screw up your schedule for next year, but there's momentum going to Lions offseason for the first time in a long time. Everyone's hyped up. Obviously, that Kool-Aid tastes real good, Honolulu Blue Kool-Aid, and people are starting to say Super Bowl. Those people would be insane, but the only way to like this and support this team, the good old Lions, would be being insane, right? It's the only way you can do it. It drives you insane, and you have to be insane, right? So could they win the Super Bowl next year? I mean, there has to be a chance. Is it a big one? Not really. What should the goal be next year? I would say making the playoffs. I think you could definitely host a playoff game. The Vikings are going to have a harder schedule this year, and no one has that luck 2 years in a row. The major disclaimer here I want to put in before we get going and talk about all the good stuff is, yes, this team was 1-6 at one point. When you watch that Carolina game, you're like, okay, that's right. This team does stink, right? Do they stink overall? No. Good team? Yes. Are they kind of like the Giants, scrappy? Yes. I think that they're better than the record suggested. That's probably easy to say. But they were 1-6 at one point, so they're not some world-beating team. Watching the Seahawks, hang around with the 49ers was, kind of good, kind of bad, because it was like, all right, hey, look, that could have been us. La-di-da-di-da. There's still a big skill gap there, right? There's still a lot of work for the Lions to do. Could they turn around in one off season? I mean, we've seen it before. Teams have gone from way worse to this, right? The Jacksonville Jaguars, went all the way up to this. The Lions would have won that division if they were in it. They would have won the NFC South and the AFC South, but that's just how kind of football works, right? Some divisions are bad some years, some other years. The NFC North especially has been bad a few years, with like the Bears, those few years that they got in. Moving forward onto the good, right? Jamal Williams broke like every record of Barry Sanders's with touchdowns and yards and things like that, which is crazy. Amon-Ra St. Brown, unbelievable receiver. Jared Goff, statistically a top 10, fringe top 5, top 7, 8 quarterback in the league, which is unbelievable. People are really giving Geno Smith all the love when it's like, hey, Jared pretty much did the same thing. So let's give him some love too. He should be getting some Pro Bowl talk. Not in it, but some talk, right? You now have 2 picks in the first round, one at 6 and one at 18. Winning that game did move your pick down 2 or 3 spots, but at that point, would you rather have that win over the spots? Probably not. My good friend and cousin Taft would disagree, and I don't blame him at all. But, in the moment, it felt great. When I'm sitting there and we see like Joey Porter, Chris Gonzalez, or Cam Smith go 2 or 3 picks in front of us, it's going to hurt a lot then. But, you did beat the Packers and sweep them. That's awesome. Can't get mad at that. Looking forward into the season itself, right? Ben Johnson's coming back. That's great. A lot of guys want to come back and take hometown deals, which is insane. Kind of the main part of this video is like, oh, they must be on the Kool-Aid too, right? Passing around at the warehouse, at the facilities. The schedule next year. So the NFC South is one of the divisions you get in the AFC West. So AFC West, brutal division to get, right? NFC South, great, probably the easiest division to get outside the AFC South. Maybe, going back and forth, especially if Brady leaves, right? He might leave to the Raiders, which would be bad because you're playing them. But if you look at this schedule, you should probably go undefeated at home, realistically speaking. So obviously you have the Bears, Packers, and Vikings 6 times, home and away. Other than that, you have the Falcons at home, the Panthers at home, the Broncos at home, the Raiders at home. Barring a Tom Brady appearance in the Raiders, you should beat them as well. And the Seahawks at home, right? Those are all winnable games. There'll be a lot of, pent-up aggression to the Seahawks, their little sketch calls and how they won it. But, if they would have won, the Lions would have lost. Or if the Rams would have won, the Lions would have lost. It's just kind of how it works, right? The SOL narrative. Your road schedule is unbelievably difficult. At Kansas City, yikes. At Chargers, yikes. At the Saints, tough place to play. They're a physical team. At the Bucks, again, could be bad. If Brady's there, obviously bad. If it's not Brady, then probably easy win, to be frankly honest with you. At Ravens, going to be tough. Is Lamar there? Probably. I would imagine he's at least there for 1 year getting tagged, for sure. They just fired Greg Roman, so he's probably going to be there. So that's another tough game. At the Cowboys, always tough, even if they're bad. But they're very much not. They're a very good team. They're in the Final Four of the NFC and have a chance to beat the 49ers. And that's your schedule, right? So in theory, you should be able to beat the Bears twice, one would think. Who knows where Rodgers goes, right? You can probably split with them. If not, probably split the Vikings, and you can probably sweep the Packers too. Is that easy to do? Absolutely not. Would you expect it to happen? No. Will they be favored in Vegas? Maybe. Lions got a lot of interesting lines this year. You're probably going to lose most of the road games. I'm imagining probably the Saints and Bucks you'll win. So that's 2 wins there. We're saying you sweep the Bears, so that's 4 wins, and you split with the other 2. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, you're now got 6 wins. And then at home, again, it's so crazy before free agency and the draft to do this, but disclaimer, this is before free agency, before the draft. The playoffs are still going. The year's not even over yet, and I'm already doing wins and losses, right? But you got to do it for the content. So you're at 6 wins, right? And now you start your home games. Falcons, win. Panthers, win. Broncos, I'm going to say loss. Raiders, probably a loss. You're going to split those, I think. And then the Seahawks should be a win, right? So that's 1, 2, 3.5 wins, so 4 wins. That's a 10-win team, right? Obviously, you're going to probably win when you shouldn't and lose when you shouldn't, so that usually cancels out. Like, they could probably beat the Chargers or Chiefs just because it's how the Lions work, right? Just some crazy stuff happens. And they could probably lose to, like, the Bears maybe, or even the Seahawks. So it's going to be probably an 8 to 10 a win team. I would imagine their Vegas line would be 8.5, 7, 7.5, 8.5, 8, something like that. I would probably recommend the over, but this is very early on, right? If they go out there and they draft some stuff, they get, they go out there and do a crazy trade. Brad Holmes has done it before with the Rams making all-in moves. I don't think it'll happen, but it could. All that being said, the Lions will not win the Super Bowl next year, but, they could be somehow in the conversation, a sexy pick by people of that. So we'll see what happens. We'll see how we go. Go Lions. We'll see you in, I don't even know when the Super Bowl is yet, so obviously I won't see you there, but we'll see how that goes. Thank you for the support as always. Please like and subscribe, and see ya. Peace.